So today we're going to talk about interfacing and stabilizers and the different fabrics and what it does for different fabrics. The first thing I always say is test, test, test. You know, take your fabrics, put your interfacing or stabilizer on them, similar to what I've done in these little samples, and then just see what effect you're going to get. Flexibility, the stiffness, what desired effect are you looking for the pattern that you're going to work on it. Can you iron on it? Does it need a pressing cloth? To understand, don't let it melt on your iron, which has happened to me. Do I need interfacing for what I'm doing? Maybe the material is thick enough I don't even need any interfacing. And what does the pattern call for? You know, I always go back to, you know, the designer has gone through multiple times of making this pattern while they were designing it. They've had pattern testers who've tested it. And so they know really what the pattern is going to look best at. So if you're not sure, follow what they say. If once you're a little more experienced, then you can start kind of venturing out and going, oh, I think I'll try foam with this instead of fleece or something a little bit different. But basically, if you're new, follow the pattern designer's instructions and use the materials that they tell you to use. And then you can always venture out, and I recommend testing. Again, this particular product is a faux cork. And as you can see here, I've got 4 different interfacings that I'm going to talk about a little bit. The woven fuse, this is like the Pellon SF101. It's a woven thin lightweight interfacing. The second one over here is fleece. This is like the Pellon Thermolam fleece is what I use, or some type of fusible fleece. This is Pellon's Peltex. It's a heavy stabilizer, very stiff. And this is Decavol Light. It's similar to Pellon's 809, but we're going to be talking about these 4 types of interfacing and how they work on different fabrics. So I've got several samples here. The way I always test something is to kind of do this ripple effect, to kind of see, you know, how stiff is it? You can kind of see how stiff it is without any interfacing. And then if you put interfacing on it, how stiff does it get? How stiff is it when I do this? Or when I put on the Decavol, you see how much stiffer that is because of the Decavol. And then the Peltex, I mean, it doesn't hardly bend at all. So, I mean, it makes a real big difference what kind of stabilizer you use. And again, this is a faux cork. This next stabilizer is actually on a piece of, I guess it would be called more of a kind of an upholstery fabric. It's very thin, kind of silky on one side, kind of fuzzy on the other side. It was an upholstery type fabric that I got at Joann's. And again, this is one I did not want to iron because it will stick to the iron. This shiny effect here, you definitely want a pressing cloth, and you always want to press from the opposite side, not the top. But again, you can see the woven fuse gave it a little bit of body. You know, the Decavol definitely added some body to it. The Peltex, again, is pretty stiff. And the fleece, you know, added just a little bit of body. So we go from light body to lighter medium body to medium to heavy body to heavy body. And that's these 4 different stabilizers on this effect. I have here, and this is an upholstery fabric. It's a cloth, a cotton type upholstery fabric. Again, your woven fuse didn't give it much. The Peltex is very stiff. The Decavol, again, is giving it some body, but it's not totally heavy. And then the fleece. And again, test these because it will give you an idea of which fabrics and which interfacings kind of work together. And I always do this Ripley test. This is just regular cotton. You can kind of see Decavol adds some body. Peltex is normally used for the base of handbags or to make something pretty stiff, as you can see by these samples. This particular sample was a faux leather that I also got, I think, at Hobby Lobby. And you can kind of see the difference here. And again, the fabric itself was a little bit heavier, so adding the stabilizers made it even heavier. This is real cork. This was a cork material that I purchased. You know, you can see, look at that. It's a little bit heavier material, so even the woven fuse, which is pretty thin, gives it quite a bit of stiffness and body. There's the fleece. You know, here's your Peltex, obviously, and your Decavol light. I mean, it's giving it quite a bit of stabilization, and would give your bag some definite strength to your bag. This is a duck cloth. This is a black duck cloth, and you can kind of just see the differences there. Peltex, again, heavy. Decavol, I'm giving it a little light. I probably, with the duck cloth, I probably wouldn't go much heavier than a woven fuse. Probably similar with the cork. I don't think I'd go much heavier than a woven fuse. Maybe a Decavol. And then this last one is quite a bit thicker. This is a thicker vinyl. It's kind of more like a marine vinyl. And again, you know, you get quite a bit of heaviness, even with the fleece. You know, you get quite a bit of heaviness in there. So it just really depends on the bag you're making, depends on the strength or the firmness of the bag that you want. Now, one thing I don't show here is foam. Foam is probably fleece and Decavol added together. It's definitely heavier than fleece, and it's not quite as stiff as Decavol, but it's real close to putting those two together. But 99% of the time, for linings, that's going to be your cotton lining. You're going to go with your woven fuse. You're probably not going to use much more than that. For the outside of your bags, you're going to really just kind of decide how stiff you want them to be. And that's going to be your decision as to what you use. So do some testing and figure out what feels good, and then go ahead and make your pattern with your desired stabilization. So if you have any questions, please feel free to put it in the comments below, and I'll get back to you. But this is kind of how I learned to use the different stabilizers, and I hope it's been helpful for you. So you have a great day, and happy crafting!